Hello, and welcome to the Friday Night Author Roundtable. I'm your host, Chris Baker, and during the next half hour, we'll be speaking with several very talented authors about their newly released books, what their inspiration was for creating their unique stories, and why it would be a great book to read and share with your friends and family. One of my favorite things is poetry, and I love a good book of poetry, and I think that's what we have next on the Friday Night Author Roundtable, an uplifting book called 111 Spiritual Poems, Volume 1 by author James Nix from Christian Faith Publishing. James, thanks for being on the show.
Appreciate you having me.
Now tell everybody a little bit about this book of poetry.
Well, it's a book that, to me, as being a pastor of a church, is more than just poems. It's a way that I can get my message out in writing to where, I can help as many people as possible to, hopefully uplift them and give them a hope of a better tomorrow. And, when you're sad, you can have a way of being lifted up and pull you out of your trials and troubles. And, always a word can help.
Now, what inspired you to take these poems that you had written and put them in a book?
Well, it kind of all started in 1995. I've always wanted to try to help people since I became a Christian. So my first poem ever written was If Someone from Hell Could Talk. So I began to think about this, and I began to write this poem. And as in a poem form, I can give it to somebody, and they can keep it and read it and maybe just lay it down somewhere, and somebody may find it and pick it. So it's a way of getting to people that maybe I'll never know.
When you put this book together, who did you have in mind as far as a target audience? Who did you really want to see get this book of poetry and read it?
Well, as many people as possible, because there's so many people in this world, so many different behaviors, so many people that needs help, hope, of lifting up. I just wanted to help as many people as I could possibly help in so many ways, and each poem is just a different message.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to be able to see this book published and to be able to share this book?
Oh, it's working great. They have been very helpful. They have worked with me. They have answered all of my questions. They have been there for me through every step. If I've had a question, they've answered all of my questions. And without them, this book wouldn't be possible. So they have been very helpful. I appreciate them so much.
Now, you're working on anything new, maybe another book of poems? I know this is Volume 1, so I'm expecting we'll see Volume 2 soon.
Yeah, I do. I have a manuscript already ready to print. I'm just waiting for the right time, and then maybe a Volume 3 after this. And I also have another book called The Bible's Little Helper that maybe sometime in the future I can give it a try.
Oh, excellent. Well, we look forward to plenty more down the road from you. Now, this book, 111 Spiritual Poems, Volume 1, when people read this, I know each poem has a different message, but is there an overall theme, an overall message that you hope people get from reading these poems?
Yes, mostly directing them toward Jesus Christ himself, and that's what it's all about. This book is all about, is pointing them to Jesus, because I want them to know that there is one out there that we can look to when we need help. And sometimes poems is more like a prayer too, to where we can get it in our heart and in our mind, to where it'll help us go through our troubles sometimes. Sometimes we don't understand the way people feel or think ourselves, so this in a way is a way to get it in their hearts, to where it can dig out the secrets of their heart towards Jesus.
Well, I tell you what, this is I think it'll be a wonderful book of poetry because, we can all find something to relate to with poetry. This poem may speak to this person. Another poem may speak to another person. I think it's going to be a very uplifting book for all who read it. The book is called 111 Spiritual Poems, Volume 1 by author James Nix from Christian Faith Publishing. I encourage everyone to pick up their copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, as well as at the brick and mortar stores. And James, thank you for being on the show.
I thank you. I appreciate you so much.
If you love a book that's a page-turner with interesting characters and events, this next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable is going to be right up your alley. The book is called In Search of Paradise, Gintong Luha, by author S. Allen Ward from Fortin Books. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now tell everybody about this book.
This book is book 1 in a series of 5 that will be written. It's a story of an individual that has worked all of his life, decides to retire on a sailboat. It's a liveaboard in the South Seas Pacific Island, and he runs into a little bit of trouble with some terrorists, and he has to figure out a way to escape and survive. So, pretty exciting book.
Now, what inspired this? Where did the idea for this come from?
The book is a culmination of a lot of things that my own personal life that I've experienced. I've done extensive travel overseas. I have been to the country that this book has been written in many times, so I'm very familiar with parts of it, and it also has a very strong Christian message to it. So I wanted to incorporate trial and tribulation and how that might change this character's life over the 5-book series.
Now, did you have a particular audience in mind when you wrote this, or is this really going to be something that's got a little bit of something for everyone?
It actually is a book that has a little bit of something for everybody. It actually has some very exciting travel aspects that are very real locations that a lot of folks will find interesting. It has a little bit of romance in it. It has a lot of action and adventure. The main characters are former military man, and it also has a bit of intrigue and mystery. There's a crime syndicate involved, so there's lots of aspects in this book that all audiences will enjoy.
Now, how was it working with Fortin Books to be able to see this book come to life and to be able to have this to share?
Biggest surprise probably for me is it's been exceptionally easy. They're well organized. They have a great editing staff. They really helped me put this together, and it's a very professional product.
Now, you said this is the first in a series. What can we expect next with Volume 2?
Volume 2 will be a continuation with the main character. He has to go to a different location in Southeast Asia, completely different element of this crime syndicate that he's kind of discovered and unfortunately was kidnapped into. So he'll encounter a different element of that, and he'll have a completely different adventure, meet new characters, and the story will continue from that location to book 3, 4, and 5 with separate locations at each of those. So it's going to make the complete circuit around Southeast Asia.
Oh, excellent. That's exciting. Got lots to look forward to with this story now. Now, this book in particular, what do you hope is the most important message that comes across? What do you want people to get from this?
Well, I think the message is really this character will be discovering, first off, some trials and tribulations as he goes through many different elements in each of the 5 books. And he's also going to learn that there's more to looking in paradise than what's right here in this earth. He's going to find out what the real paradise is by the time book 5 is here.
Oh, this is such an exciting book and series to come. It's got, like I said, you got a little something for everybody, a little multifaceted with action, adventure, mystery, a little romance. I think this is going to be a fun book and, like I said earlier, a page-turner. The book is called In Search of Paradise, Gintong Luha by author S. Allen Ward from Fortin Books. You can get your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Google Play, online as well as at the brick-and-mortar stores. And Mr. Ward, thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Everyone goes through loss and goes through those surprises in life that you didn't see coming. And you know what? The discovery in this next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable may surprise you. The book is called Beloved, A Widow's Journey by author Carol Irace-Brunetti from Christian Faith Publishing. Carol, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Now tell everybody about this book you've written.
This book is about my life, for all I went through, the pain and struggle of my husband being diagnosed with cancer and the struggle I went to losing him. And then afterwards, I had to go through a journey. That's why I called it a widow's journey, because it's my journey as a widow, of rediscovery, who I was as a widow, as a single woman, as a single mom. Like instantly that happened to me, and I had to take this journey to find out who I was. And it's also a book of hope and encouragement. Beloved is for anybody who's struggling or doesn't know where to look for answers. And it's a book of where God had shown me and the steps that he led me into ministry. And I talk about all that God had brought me through.
Now, what inspired you to take what you had experienced and gone through and put this into a book? Because I have to imagine it probably had to be pretty personal and maybe at times difficult.
It was very, very personal. And what I did was, the Lord had told me to write the book. And I would wake up in the middle of the night and he would give me these thoughts, and I started writing down notes. And in the morning, I'd set to put down chapters. It just kind of just flowed from me. But I took my life. I was very, very raw and very real and transparent in the book. People who have read it have told me they can't believe the things that I talked about, things that people can't put into words. I mentioned so many different areas and so many different thoughts and struggles, and I know it will help absolutely everybody who reads it.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Is there anybody in particular in mind when you wrote this that you would like to see read this book? What's kind of like your target audience for this?
Anybody who's struggled, anybody who's been through pain, anybody who's lost a job or had different emotions they've just struggled with. People who don't know what the next chapter is in their life. People who don't know what comes next. People who just need someplace to, like, if you've hit a fork in the road and you don't know what to do. It's a book of answers. It's a book of direction. It's my life, and I know that when you look at someone else's life, it gives you hope that you can get through what you're going through. And I know loss is very real. Hard times is real. The struggle is real. But this is a book of hope. It's a book of encouragement. It's a book that anybody can get your feet moving again.
Now, how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing to be able to get this book published and to share your story?
Oh, they were absolutely excellent to work with. I loved working with them. I would recommend them to absolutely anybody.
Now, is this something you think you might like to do again? Maybe a follow-up, or are you working on anything new?
It's funny. Everybody who has read it has asked me that. They said they thought my writing was exquisite, was the one word I keep hearing. And they said, we want to hear more from you. The Lord hasn't directed me to. I've often thought of writing a devotional. So I guess I'll have to wait and see what the Lord has next.
Well, we look forward to hopefully more from you down the road. Now, this book, Beloved, when people read this, what do you hope is the most important message that they get from reading about your accounts?
What I want people to get from this is that God can do anything through anybody. That God, He used somebody who, like me, I was a mom, I was a wife, and God used me. God chose me to go through the loss, to use the bad things that happened in my life to turn out for good. And that's what God does. He turns lives around.
I think that's a wonderful message, because we all go through hard times and trials and tribulations in our life, and to know that we're not alone and that there is hope through somebody else's testimony. I think this is going to be a great book for everyone who picks it up. The book is called Beloved, A Widow's Journey by author Carol Irace-Brunetti from Christian Faith Publishing. You can get your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, online, the brick and mortar stores, just a handful of the locations. And Carol, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Chris, for having me.
This next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable going to be a fascinating look at redemption and purpose and a whole lot more. The book is called Biker's Loyalty by author Anthony S. from Fortin Books. Anthony, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Now tell everybody what this book is about.
Like you said, it's about a gentleman who had redeemed himself. First of all, this gentleman here, he had in the secular world and things like that, and things have started happening. You know, he started noticing a change. His wife started noticing the change, and things have been manifesting in his life. Of course, he didn't know who it was or what it was that contributed to that. So as life went on and everything, he just decided to go ahead and just serve Christ once he found out who he was on a full-time basis. And being a biker, he faced a lot of adversity. But there was some adversity, and eventually there was some manifestation in his life, because he yielded to our Heavenly Father, and he just revealed some things to him, and the rest is history.
Now, what inspired this story, and were you able to draw from any of your own personal experiences in writing this?
Yes, some of it is my own personal experiences and things like that. And the motivation behind it is that Christ said, go out into the world and spread the gospel and let people know of me. And the way I do that, Chris, is by way of my pen. And that's exactly how I do my part.
Now, when you wrote this, did you have like a particular audience in mind, or is this really the kind of story that really anybody's going to be able to enjoy and gain a lot from?
Yes, the thing of it is there's no certain demographics or certain target audience. No, because Jesus never said anything like that. You know, He loves us all the same. So it applies to any and every one who either knows Christ, who has fallen, or those who don't know Christ at all.
Now, how was it working with Fortin Books to be able to get this book published and be able to share this story?
It was awesome. Fortin Books has supported me 100%. I give kudos to them. They have a wonderful art department, page design department, cover department, and the editing is awesome. They make it very, very user-friendly, and they're very proactive. The publicists and assistants are very diligent, and that made it a lot easier for me, moving forward.
Now, is this something you might do again? Now, are you working on anything new, maybe a sequel to this?
I am actually Bikers 2, and I actually have a co-author. His name is K.E.M., and we are going to collaborate on Bikers 2, and it's going to be extremely powerful as well. We're just going to continue with the manifestation that the Lord has blessed us with, and we're going to move forward with that together to continue to reach out to people who are actually lost and don't know Christ, or those who have fallen, and we want to encourage them to get back up. Because no matter what you do, no matter where you're from, no matter your color, your skin, your race, your ethnic, it doesn't matter. All of that doesn't really matter. Jesus loves us the same. So that's the message we're trying to send.
Well, I tell you what, that is a great message. And of course, we look forward to the sequel coming up. What do you hope is the most important thing that people get when they read this book?
First of all, there is some tearjerkers in there. The storyline, and when I tell a story, I tell a story as though I'm looking for out of your own eyes, if you will, because I have to understand it. When you tell a story as an author, I don't leave room for guessing. I want to tell a story, taking all things into consideration that no one knows how I'm trying to deliver the story or the narrative of the story. So I say, okay, well, they don't know this, that, and the other. So when I tell a story, I don't leave any room for guessing. What did he mean? How did he say that? Where was he going with this? I try to eliminate all of the above so that there's a nice, clean-cut story and the narrative touches the heart. So there's a lot of good stuff in that book.
Well, I tell you what, this is one of those exciting books that I think is going to be a great story and a great message all rolled into one, and really, I think, lead a lot of people to the Lord and closer to the Lord in the reading. The book is called Biker's Loyalty by author Anthony S. from Fortin Books. You can get your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Google Play, online, as well as at the brick-and-mortar stores. Those are just a handful of the locations. And Anthony, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to say one more thing, Chris.
Sure.
We don't support our first responders, our military, our troops who are suffering from PTSD. So I want to give a shout out to them as well. And I'd like for us to really, really take notice of that. Take your time to let them know that we appreciate the security that we have and the freedom that they allowed us to have. Thank you so much.
If you love a good story about corruption and self-preservation and the corporate boardroom, I think this is going to be a fascinating story. This is that and so much more. The book is called His Betrayals by author Jerry Payne from Fortin Books here on the Friday Night Author Roundtable. Jerry, thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you, Chris. It's a privilege to be able to talk about this book to you.
Now tell everybody a little bit about this book you've written.
Well, this book is like no other book because it is based on a life story of my experiences. A fast-moving story of grit and endurance while a life events like no other events could happen. Orphaned at 8, a military officer at 18, a millionaire at 26, and then the betrayals to take Kyle Stone down. What a story. I've been told, Chris, that this story should be 2 to 3 books, but no, I put it all in one because that was the way my life was. This is a story from a disabled veteran who worked hard and became disabled in service of his country and then lived an incredible story while he tried to build a financial empire for his wife and his children.
Now, what inspired you to write this and tell this story?
When I sit down and talk to people about what I have went through, everyone says, oh my gosh, that should be a book, that should be a movie. Well, I was hearing that so many times, it was necessary that this book had to be written. This story had to be told. And those that have read it just cannot believe what I went through and what an incredible story to read and a page-turner like no other.
Now, how was it working with Fortin Books to get this book published and to be able to get this story out there?
Well, I think, one of the good things about writing the book and talking to other writers, editing is the big deal of getting a book out. Fortin Books did the editing for me. Do not ever try to put a book out or to try to get a publishing deal unless you edited your book. It will make all the difference in the world when those that review it, and that would be my advice for any young authors or new authors that are starting, and Fortin Books did a great job for me.
Now, are you working on anything new? Do you have anything lined up down the road?
Yes, my character is Kyle Stone. He is right now in Puerto Vallarta waiting for instructions as we continue to write the next book of Kyle Stone's adventures.
Oh, excellent. Well, we look forward to the next installment of this story about Kyle. And now this book, His Betrayals, when people read this, is there a message you hope comes across with this book? And what would that be?
Well, I think it is a message of hope. It's a message that you can prevail if you stay strong, you stay positive, you don't allow the negatives of life and the negatives of others who try to take you down win. You are the winner. You are the one that has the ability to defeat those that are bad. So stay strong in life. Life has always thrown curveballs. It always will. And if you are strong and positive and good faith, you can win and you will prevail.
Well, this is such a wonderful story, a fascinating page-turner with a great message of hope that I think everyone is going to enjoy this and this series. The book is called His Betrayals by author Jerry Payne from Fortin Books. I encourage everyone, pick up your copy today, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Google Play, online, as well as at the brick and mortar stores, just a few of the locations. And Jerry, thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure, Chris. Thank you.
Our next book on the Friday Night Author Roundtable, a fascinating sequel to the book Magic Fairy Rose. This book, of course, is called The Fairy Rose in America, Volume 2 by author A.E. Fortin from Fortin Books. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Now tell everybody what this story is about.
The Fairy Rose in America, it's about 3 rose bushes. And I started for the first book in the 1700s in Scotland. This book is in the 1850s. So my characters, Neil Hart and Alexander McGregor, was going to be visited by the characters in the first book, Thomas and Eleanor McGregor. They were going to be told all about how to get to America, what to do. And once in America, and they found their home where they were to bring roses and everything, you will find how they would carry the roses to America. Now, you would think they would carry them in pots, but there's a twist to this. I also have the story about the Navy SEALs. Ellen and Thomas, their fathers became Navy SEAL, and you will find out how long it took before the next Thomas and Eleanor was born.
What inspired you to write this story? Where did this all kind of come from?
We had a young woman that stayed with us. We were helping her out, and she was trying to become a writer herself. She gave me a gift. It was a CD that I could cut and paste anything I wrote and listen to it. And my husband also gave me a dictionary that reads to me, gives me examples. I was one of those young children that couldn't read and spell that good. And with these gifts, I was able to complete a dream that I always wanted to do because I love listening to books. And I wanted to also show people that they can do it. If there's a will, there's a way. You can do anything you want.
Now, how was it working with Fortin Books to be able to get these books published?
It was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. I told them what I wanted, and they came up with just what I was looking for. I'm just very happy with what they have done so far for me.
Now, of course, this is Volume 2. What can we expect from Volume 3 coming up?
Yes, I'm working on it. In fact, I just put it up for a while. It's going to be a journal about Thomas and what he went through.
Now, this book, The Fairy Rose in America, when people read this, is there a message that you hope comes across from this book, and what would that be?
I wanted to show for the Navy SEALs, as my husband is a Navy man, there are very talented people out there that are protecting us. And I wanted to also show that if a person is really in love, it will come out. You just got to be patient and wait.
I tell you what, this is a fascinating series of books. This is going to be the type of series of books that people are just going to, they won't be able to put down. And I encourage everyone to pick up your copy today. Of course, this book we've been talking about, The Fairy Rose in America, Volume 2 by author A.E. Fortin from Fortin Books. You can pick up your copy today at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Google Play, online, as well as at the brick and mortar stores. Just a few of the locations. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Friday Night Author Roundtable. We'll be back next week with another great group of talented authors to discuss their books, their process, and their accomplishments. Have a great weekend, everyone.